And now, Be Insured with Luke Mardigian, presented by Farm Bureau Insurance.
Hello, and thank you for listening. My name is Luke Mardigian, and you are listening to Be Insured, a show where we discuss a variety of topics related to insurance, business, and leadership so you can stay protected while growing a thriving business. You know, over the past few years, I focused a ton on creating the type of culture in my business that could inspire my employees to really buy into our mission and our values as an agency, as an insurance agency, and use that as fuel to work harder to serve our clients. And I'll be honest, it's not something that happens overnight. Having employees that are just as passionate about your business as you are is what every boss wants, but how do you make that a reality? And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And I'm very excited because I'm joined by some guys who have a ton of experience with this topic, and they are
Rob Buffington,
John Mashni,
Eric Gestring with the Mardigian Agency.
Rob. I feel like our two industries. Rob's a real estate agent as one of his many things that he's into. And I feel like our industries are pretty similar in that having a team that's knowledgeable and passionate about what they do and willing to go the extra mile is the key difference between success or failure. What role has culture played in allowing you to build the quality team that you have today?
Well, I think a lot of it is just focusing on hiring the right personalities when you're putting a team together. And actually, John and I talked a little bit before we started the show, hiring the right positions for the team to make sure that you can grow as quickly as you want to grow as far as the overall growth of your team and your business model. So like one of our first hires was the admin. And then from there, we focused on hiring, associate agents for the team.
Sales team, essentially, right?
Yes.
Yep. And you're using some assessments, and I know John and I feel passionately about a couple of assessments, and we'll talk about that as far as hiring. John, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What would you say the quality of your staff, how does it dictate how successful you are or can be, and how much does your work culture affect how well your employees perform?
Yeah, to me, I say this in so many contexts, but I think it's absolutely true. The number one job of any entrepreneur or business owner, anyone that's trying to build an organization, is you got to build the team. That's your number one job. And really that's the leader's job, is building the team. And it looks like different things in different contexts, but it's absolutely true. So when you look at it in terms of having a group of people live in an organization, I think there's lots of questions that you ask. I think Rob's exactly right. When you bring people in, you have to make that assessment right away. Is this the right person? And then are they in the right seat, right? Those are two separate questions. I think it's really important.
How do you do that?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. That's how we can make this reality. That's exactly what we're going to break down. As I mentioned earlier, focusing on culture and how that affects my employees is something I've really focused on. What you just talked about, John, reminds me of, I think it was in Marcus Luttrell's book, Lone Survivor. He talked about in BUDS, which is Navy SEAL basic training, essentially, before they become a SEAL, about boat crews. So you say have the right person in the right seat. For them, it's literally the right person in the right seat in the boat to paddle out to the Pacific Ocean. And he told a story of this boat crew that won all the races. They had race, and they had, they're saying it pays to be a winner. So if you won, you get to sit out the next race. So, of course, next race comes, they're fresh, they go back out and win, and then they get the rest again because they're fresh, and it just keeps going that way. At some point, one of the cadres said that it's because he has such a good boat crew. We need he just got all the, he got the deck stacked. And he said, so one of the instructors said, no, watch this. Took the boat crew leader from that winning boat crew, assigned it to a boat that had been losing every race, dead last. The first race they took second, the second race they took first. So it's just as much about having the right people in the right seats as it is having the person telling everybody what to do when they're in the right seats, that leadership piece. And I think for me, at least, something that I've learned very quickly is that having a good hiring and firing process is how you figure out who the right person is for the right seat. And if they're not the right person for the right seat, you got to kick them out of the boat.
I agree.
And so one of the ways that you can do that is having just a defined process that properly vets candidates, so that you can figure out whether they're a good match. And, the saying that I was always told is hire slow, fire fast. I tend to hire fast, fire slow. So that can cause issues, right? But how can you put this into action in your business? So For us, we've had to create job descriptions for everybody. And we use those job descriptions during the interview. So how do you feel about dealing with people who are upset? Something went wrong with their insurance. How do you feel about dealing with that? Rob has several properties that we insure. Keeping track of them is hard. How do you keep track of things as one of my staff members? Those questions you can figure out pretty quickly whether they got their stuff together or not. And another one, another piece that I really like is, and John, you're actually the main reason why I have a good one is an employee agreement. So John practices business law here in Lansing, Michigan, with a company called Foster Swift. Happens to be my business attorney also. And I hit you up one day and asked for an employee agreement, and you had tons of value to bring. Could you share that with our listeners?
Yeah, I think to me, there's the part of the process that you want to hire the right person. You want to make sure that you have defined roles. Absolutely, job descriptions are really helpful. There's also you have to think of it, you're entering a legal relationship with someone, and there's a lot that can go wrong, obviously, as well as there's a lot that can go right.
All right, so back up. I thought my employees were all my friends.
Well, hopefully you have a friendly relationship, you have a great culture. At the same time, employee problems can be one of the biggest headaches for business owners and for entrepreneurs. And I probably don't even need to back that up at all. You can just say that, and most people are nodding their heads.
Most business owners are going, "Oh man, you're telling me, buddy."
Absolutely.
And if you don't address it at the beginning, I have one guarantee for you. Lawyers don't give many guarantees. It will only get bigger, the problem, I mean. So you need to address problems early, and that means as soon as the relationship starts, part of setting expectations is having some type of legal agreement or arrangement, or even just an employee handbook that sets expectations on both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the pieces that we talked about early on were things like arbitration clauses. Essentially, I'm not an attorney. I kind of have a basic understanding.
Yeah, dispute resolution. You want to be thinking about if there's a dispute, how do you want it to be handled? And I deal a lot with intellectual property as well. One thing people just completely don't pay attention to in their business is someone developing intellectual property for you. Whether you're hiring them as an employee, many times they're contractors because that's the nature of the relationship. You always need to be thinking about those things. When you don't address it initially, the problem is only going to be much worse. I usually say it's a 10 times return on your investment when you address it earlier versus if you have to pay for it down the line. Minimum 10 times.
Wow. So, that's the importance of having a really good business attorney that you can refer to, or, if you're part of a franchise, they may already have those things for you built. To back that up, when it goes bad, it's typically when somebody loses a job, right? That's the most common reason why a business is going to have an employment team or lawsuit. You
really should have an experienced business employment attorney that is giving you advice when you're hiring and firing. I think especially in the climate today, social climate, there's so many different movements, there's so many different people who have agendas and that are educating the public. The workforce is very educated about these issues, and so you need to be as well as a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I got advice, and I can't remember where it came from, but essentially, it was a fellow business owner. Before you fire somebody, call that attorney.
Oh yeah, no question.
Yep, I get it. Their billable hours are expensive. Yep, I get. Small businesses run tight margins, but that is going to be a few $100s well spent, because they will tell you, don't fire them yet. You don't have your documentation. You did not follow the process right. You're going to have an issue here. Let's try to head this off and give you some real tactical advice.
Yeah, and to maybe even broaden it, right? You should have a team of advisors, and you should have a process, whether it's an HR group or team within your organization, or if your HR team is you still need to have a process in place when you're hiring people and when, people's employment is being terminated. There needs to be a process in place. And there's very simple steps that you can take to go through that process. And I don't want to say necessarily legal should drive the bus, because I don't think it should, but it should be a critical component of the process. It really needs to be. And you could say that about a lot of different types of advisors, but that's just one example.
Yeah, no, that's great. And the main reason why this is so important into forming a culture, which is our topic today, is because, I know, and Rob, you can speak to this, when you hire the wrong person and you got to let them go, man, does it take a hit of morale? Because, you as the leader, now they're questioning, can you make why'd you hire that guy? He was not a good fit from day one. Now I'm questioning whether you even know what you're doing. And then that person comes in the door and they leave, and there was a lot of energy to try to get to know them and know their kids' names and what they like and connect. Your team is invested in that person, and now you got to let them go because you made a bad decision hiring them.
Right. I think what you said earlier, slow to hire, quick to fire, is the key thing to remember when you're hiring anyone. But ultimately, something that John said is, yes, they can be your friend, but they can also be your friend when they exit, from whatever position they are with your, group or your company. It's just, how do you exit? Do you have a plan established for them to exit? We actually have an exit interview where we ask people, what they liked about the position, whether it was their position to leave or whether it was ours. But ultimately, we just want good feedback from them, and we want to give them our feedback. And then, typically it's a better situation.
Yeah, you're walking away in the positive. So the first point of this, how to build a team culture that's going to help you be successful. The first one is have a hiring and firing process. Our second point is, and I think this is critical, this is like the meat and bones of this, is empowering your employees. Eric, can you speak to how empowering employees has played out in our agency?
Yeah, absolutely. We call our agency like the land of misfits because I feel like we all came from places that were undesirable. And for some reason, when you put all these people together in this environment, they excel tremendously. But there's a lot to do with having everybody believe in the mission. So as a leader, Luke makes sure that the mission is clear and understood and kind of passes it along to me and others to make sure that the excitement stays up to accomplish the mission. When you're excited about accomplishing a mission, you have way better results than blandness and no enthusiasm whatsoever. Obviously, I think the key component is understanding your mission all the way across.
Yeah, so that's a great foundation to build off. Is if your employees understand your mission and then you empower them to complete it, that's really how you kind of put fuel in the fire, right? You put gas in the engine with that. Is that empowerment? Hey, this is what you're going to do. This is where we're going. Now go do it, and let me know what you need. As opposed to, I know there's all types of different leadership styles, but as opposed to you're going to do this in this minute, you're going to do this in this minute. That is not how you build a team culture. It's how you suffocate a team culture.
And you got to play off the team's strong points. You're not going to, obviously, you mentioned at the beginning, there's assessments that will help you understand your staff or your employers way better. And if you key in on those strong points, you actually have way better results.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we use an assessment called Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. It's kind of a pivot off of the 5 love languages that you can use for like interpersonal relationships. And it's been really successful. As a business owner, I found out all of my employees, their primary language of appreciation is quality time. And so as a business owner, that kind of put a lot of strain on me. But so now I just know I have to be in the office for a certain amount of time and let them talk about whatever they need to talk about. And that really makes them feel empowered. One of the best examples I think of the empowerment is from a book called The New Gold Standard. It's about the Ritz-Carlton, where they actually give up to $2,000 authority to every employee to fix whatever problem they come across. You're one of the cleaning ladies, and somebody, their bag breaks, their handle breaks. They can help them with that without having to go to a manager, without having to get a requisition slip signed or an expense report signed. They just go and do it because they take that, whatever that problem is, from beginning to end.
Which is empowering the team there.
Yep. So I'll leave it at this question. What is the number one thing you feel that listeners should take away from this conversation, Rob?
Well, I would say having a clear mission and making sure that the people on your team, you've communicated it effectively and efficiently to your team members, and that they're all in line with that mission prior to joining the team is critical.
That's really good, John.
I would say building the team is the main thing every single time. And if you as an entrepreneur are putting other things before that, then you're probably making a mistake.
Absolutely. There you have it. I want to thank you for listening to today's conversation. And I want to give a big thanks to my guests for joining me today, Rob Buffington, Eric Gestring, and John Mashni. I'd love to hear from you listeners as well. How big of a role has culture played in your performance of your staff? Message me with your thoughts on Instagram or Facebook at The Mardigian Agency. That's Mardigian. The Mardigian Agency. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Be Insured.